Right here, you got a man named Hulk Hogan. One of the greatest wrestlers of all time, one of the most iconic wrestlers in WWE history or in professional wrestling history. He is well regarded, kinda well respected, and just an all-around icon of his industry. But back in the day, in the 80s and 90s when Hulk Hogan was really in his prime and Hulkamania was really running wild, there was another guy in another brand, the complete opposite of Hulk Hogan. He wasn't a good guy, he would win by any means possible. He was a dastardly villain and had an ego higher than his alcohol blood level. Meet Ric Flair. Also one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. But the thing about Ric Flair is his prime was never in the WWE. It was in a company called WCW. And he was the consensus second, even sometimes biggest wrestler at the time. So kids in the 80s and 90s and adults alike were booking dream matches and dream feuds regarding Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. The all-time good guy versus the all-time bad guy. Now, Hulk Hogan eventually left the WWE for WCW, Ric Flair's promotion, and he made the company WCW more popular than the WWE at the time. His first feud was of course against the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Even though these guys were 1 and 2 at the time, Hulk Hogan was obviously more popular. Of course, this is professional wrestling. Everything is scripted, but Hulk Hogan had something called creative control. He could pick the outcomes of any of his fucking matches that he wanted. Every match in WWE and WCW, it was leg drop, pin, leg drop, pin, leg drop, pin. You get the gist. And when the 1 and 2 faced off in Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair never won a match against him. And in wrestling, we would call that a burial. Granted, Ric Flair is too big of an icon in sports, entertainment, and pop culture to ever be buried. But against Hulk Hogan, that shit did not matter. Now, even though back then Hulk Hogan was well respected, he was an icon of the industry, and at one point the face of wrestling. Over time, when Hulk Hogan would flex his creative control and decide to pin person after person after person, it became quite a problem. Because as Hogan got older and no one was getting over except him, there was a real lack of superstars left in professional wrestling, especially after Hulk Hogan's first stint in the WWE. But I'll get back to this story later. Let's talk about inside the NBA. Now, contrary to popular belief, I don't think this is a good show for basketball. I think it's entertaining. I think they can be funny, but healthy for the modern NBA game, I don't think so. Because they literally Hulk Hogan leg drop the modern day game and modern day players. Because if you don't know, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith, all-time great players for their era, which was the 80s and 90s, where they really dominated the league. And at some point, Shaq was even considered the face of the league. But what I've noticed recently, as inside the NBA keeps going, and as inside the NBA continues, NBA season after NBA season, it's getting pretty unbearable, especially if you do like modern day basketball, because all these guys do is bitch, moan, and absolutely bury modern day players.
$193 million. 3 years, $193 million to play basketball. We're not steel workers. We're not nurses. Like people who got like real jobs who have to work 40, 50 hours a week. We're playing basketball at the most.
6 from 3, Bulls 19 of 52.
Wow, that's a lot of threes, man. And it's interesting. There's a great debate going on why our ratings are down and people are not interested in NBA. And the guy was on the great Dan Patrick show. He asked me about, is it threes or load management? And I said, it's probably a combination of both. I don't think guys want to, number one, guys are making a lot of money and don't want to play back-to-back games. That's going to turn the average fan off. But if you're just going to come out and have a 3-point shooting contest every night, don't you think that's coaching?
And as the NBA ratings have been dropping, it feels like what they're saying is getting a little bit of validity. But I'm saying they are part of the problem why NBA viewership is dropping. Because they do spit out such harmful narratives to the game, which is crazy because y'all are the top broadcast team for the NBA. When people watch primetime NBA games, these are the faces people see and the faces that represent the league. And for these people to be so harmful to the game and new players, it's terrible because they have the ability to start a serious dialogue about the game. Like for example, think of JaVale McGee. Now all y'all know him from Shaqtin' a Fool, his funny clips, him admittedly doing some head ass shit on the court. But at the end of the day, he was a serviceable to good NBA center. But casuals wouldn't know that because you see more Shaqtin' a Fool JaVale McGee clips than actually JaVale McGee games he plays in. Not only the fans see this, but Steve Kerr said it perfectly in this clip.
JaVale has been fantastic for us, as a player, as a teammate. Fantastic guy. He's funny. He's fun to be around. He's position where somebody on national TV is making fun of you night after night. It's not the greatest thing for your reputation. I can tell you, I had a preconceived notion of JaVale before he got here that turned out to be totally false.
JaVale McGee being an absolute professional, a good defensive player, and a decent inside scorer is not the legacy of his career, because we let these ass clowns make a narrative about his career. And I'm not gonna deny that JaVale McGee has some absolute head ass moments, but pretending that that is his whole career is insane. So that's one of my examples. But what I'd also like to say is, inside the NBA has corrupted basketball conversations as a whole, because they don't even acknowledge the contributions modern players make to the game, because they're so stuck in the past to their own eras that they don't care about the evolution of basketball, which I can get, because basketball in the 2000s is such a different product from basketball in the 2020s that I think 2000s basketball looks more similar to 1960s basketball than it does to the game today. Shout out to King of the Fourth Quarter for giving me this idea. Simply, the difference between the modern day and the 2000s is they step back 6 feet. And for another example, it's as simple as comparing it to the NFL. NFL discourse is so much better because you don't got Tom Brady announcing a game and at halftime talking about how Jared Goff shouldn't be in the league anymore, or seeing the Minnesota Vikings having a breakout season with Sam Darnold and making jokes about how he sees ghosts and how back in the day he might have not been a good quarterback. Why? Because that would absolutely bury modern day football, and simply it would just start unnecessary narratives that wouldn't give credit to where it's due. Like, yeah, you might hear an NFL legend say you can't hit as hard as you can in the modern day game, or it might restrict defenses. But at the end of the day, most of these NFL legends at least understand that breaking niggas' necks and paralyzing people on the field isn't a good product. You don't see Terry Bradshaw before the 12 o'clock NFL games hit say, Kyler Murray could have never survived in the 70s. He's too short. They would have picked him up. They would have got a horse collar. They would have went for his face mask. No, you would never hear him say that. These things might have been okay in his time, but he understands in 2025 that the game he played in the 1970s, he understands that discrediting a modern day player because they might not have survived isn't their fault. But with that being said, that's going to be the end of this video. This was kind of more negative video, but I had to talk about this because inside the NBA for me has kind of ruined basketball discourse. But that'll be the end of this video. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch y'all boys later for real. Peace.